a couple of places where there's a little bit of blood and you're squeezing.
You can't put it in words what it was like. Just knowing that something's getting ready to happen.
I can't explain it. I just hop in circles again when I have to. But it was just overblown.
Why did it start here? I've asked myself that many times. Why here? Of all the places in the world, why here?
We prayed here. We moved up in the saddle of the gap, which is where all the folks would come through into Kentucky. And then we went up on top of the mountain where you can look over into 4 states. Just an incredible time, and in some ways probably set the stage for what's happened in eastern Kentucky the last few years.
At the march that day, I knew this was bigger than us. We didn't understand that. That moment changed my life.
Just go on.
Another of Appalachia's simple pleasures is its distinctive music. Appalachia's heart and toe music is not the region's only form of porch entertainment, or even its oldest. That distinction is reserved for what is arguably Eastern Kentucky's greatest gift, storytelling.
The stories that we share as we get together as groups, these stories become so real to you. If you actually know them people personally that will tell their tales about. Of course, they tell tales on us while we're telling tales on them.
Said, not all of the local stories are as entertaining or as pleasant.
If you've ever traveled other places, you know that people will say, "Where are you from?" And when you would say Clay County, it was like, "Oh, Clay County."
I don't remember a reporter ever coming into this county to do a good story. The reality was that Clay County, per capita, was one of the most deadly counties in the state.
In the middle 80s, you know, we started to cover this broader territory. One of the things that we hear about was in Clay County was having a reputation as being particularly corrupt.
When you have your county court clerks, 2 of them in the last 5 years have died, and you know, city council persons have died, magistrates have died, circuit judges have died, mayors, police officials. I mean, that's as bad as it gets.
There was a real sense that you had to play that sort of dirty politics game to get ahead. And as a result, a lot of people that didn't want to be involved in that just disengaged.
Good people sat back and did nothing. And I'm convinced that's a big part of our problem. We talk about how bad the darkness was, but the lack of light was more of a problem than the darkness.
Spiritual pride and parochial bickering essentially stripped the church of any meaningful role in the public arena.
We had hid behind the church wall so long that nobody gave us any, that they didn't, think anything about the church. We weren't a factor.
Spiritually, I think our county is fragmented because no pastor would dare venture outside his comfort zone and try to seek fellowship, especially with a pastor of another denomination.
It was pretty much every man for himself, every church, there was not much crossing of the lines.
For many professing Christians, this deep-seated hopelessness found expression in public cynicism.
The world's going to hell in a handbasket, and nothing we can do about it, and nothing God can do about it.
For years, there was no better occasion to witness this resignation than on Election Day.
The elections were bought and paid for, and so they knew their vote didn't count, so they didn't go out and vote.
None of them voted. None of the people that I worked with. And I remember one time there was an election going on, and they came in and they said somebody else that had came into our office had gone and voted. And they said, well, what were they paid?
They never want to do anything illegal. They've made a good living out of it. And here you are broke down with nothing.
People were put in positions of trust that they violated, and rather fulfilling their public trust, they elected to use those as a means of furthering their own greed.
Still, the most sinister feature of these corrupt mountain politics was undoubtedly the symbiotic relationship that emerged between elected officials and local drug kingpins.
We had officers here that I was not named that are now currently in federal prison for their connections they had with drug dealers in the community.
There's something that is not right when you can deal drugs on every corner in Manchester. They would bust somebody, take them on the courthouse seal, and before they got their paperwork filled out, they were back out, and a lot of them never went back to court.
Some of the officers that were trying to do the right thing would conduct raids in search warrants, and when they get to certain drug dealers' house, they would find nothing. And they would look on the caller ID and see where a phone call from this building. They had received a phone call from this building. Like I said, you have to live, this in a war zone.
I don't think anybody realized the extent of corruption, I mean the full extent.
The counties of eastern Kentucky became the front line in the national battle against prescription drug abuse.
And it was just a flood of drugs. And then, of course, they would moved on and with Dr. Shop in the area. And then organized and Dr. Shop out of state, and then took van loads as far away as to Philadelphia.
There would be people lined up out the doors, literally, to get prescription pain medication. Oxycontin, Lorceps, Lortabs, you name it, they would give it.
The average Oxycontin user in eastern Kentucky has a $60,000 a year habit. Well, that presents an incredible problem, because almost nobody in eastern Kentucky makes $60,000 a year.
The options for most users are limited to stealing or dealing. Big-time drug dealers like Bobby Jones paid off several county officials to operate in the open. In 1999, at the height of his operation, Jones' drug window was drawing upwards of 600 vehicles a day, well beyond the rate of drive-through traffic at several local fast food restaurants.
Things just started deteriorating so bad.
When you've got government leaders that are over the drug rings, and they're doing all of these things, well, no wonder everybody was coming to Manchester to buy drugs. I tell my wife, I say, honey, we need to move to Clay County. All the dope that you could ever want is over there. And the law does not, they don't do anything about it. That's exactly where I need to be.
Hang around southeastern Kentucky long enough, and one name is sure to come up. Steve Collett.
I can tell you he was one of the most dangerous, tough outlaws.
Steve was probably one of the worst of the worst guys that you would ever want to tangle with or meet.
My mom always said, if the snake bit me, it killed her.
No one wanted to be around him, scared of him. That was Steve Collett.
I was the lowest form of life in my community. There, not even my family wanted me in it or around.
We see him coming, we locked the door there, you know.
He was a wild man, you know, you never knew what he was going to do.
To hurt somebody was nothing in my life. I mean, that was just what life was about.
Like many children of his day, Steve Collett grew up in the primitive isolation of a mountain home.
We never had electricity until I was probably 13.
You had to put your lips down in either the creek or the well, you know.
And right here's where the house set. Right in here, right in here.
Back in the day when we was little kids, they was born in this bed.
Sadly, it very nearly became the bed in which they died. One evening, in a fit of anger, their father Rufus aimed a 12-gauge shotgun at a dog sitting between two of his siblings and pulled the trigger.
Many times, as a little boy, I would just go lay down in the bed and pray for somebody to come over to stop my dad.
A combustible mix of alcohol and obsessive jealousy made it dangerous for anyone to come into the hollow unannounced.
Dad, he always told me that if you kill a man, just assume it's a squirrel, and that way it'll never bother you.
Within the household, Carolyn Collett, a gracious and hard-working mother of 9, caught most of the abuse.
Numerous times I've seen her beat up and crying and black eyes and bruises, and it just tormented all of us.
You had the greatest mother after had ever been born to the body of a human. But she was. She fed everybody. You could knock her brains out today and she would hug you next tomorrow.
Whatever demons were haunting Rufus Collett, he spoke little of them. Even rarer were any expressions of fatherly affection.
You never heard him say, "I love you, son." I've never heard him say that in my life. He would always tell us, "Never love nothing." So, we grew up like that, and then I just began to just keep it inside. And then when I was 13, I left home.
By the age of 17, Steve was providing protective muscle for local drug dealers. He was also addicted to cocaine and methamphetamine.
And then again, I started finding myself in the jail. And I never forget my wife. She would come to the jail and she said, "Steve, I'm going to lose you." And I said, "Listen, I will never walk out on you and my 2 kids."
But the drugs were taking control. As a major snowstorm descended on the Appalachians, the chill seemed particularly bitter in the Collett household.
The last time I seen them that winter was they had nothing in the house. They had to walk if they went anywhere, and I drove off and left them in that condition because drugs had become my God.
He would take anything. It don't matter what it was. He would take it.
The consequences of this reckless behavior were often unpredictable.
So guess what? He come back. And he jumped out of his vehicle with a shotgun. He was probably 40 foot from me, and if you know anything about shotgun, it throws a big pattern. I got right to the bar, and it just got dark. I heard somebody say something about the law, so I just felt my way into the mountains and covered my head up. I was losing blood really bad because I didn't know that I had warrants on me.
Steve's cat and mouse relationship with area lawmen was fueled by a deep and mutual fear and loathing.
The state police said there's nothing they'd rather see in my name engraved on a tomb rock.
He did not fear the police. As a matter of fact, he's got the scars to prove it.
They hated me and I hated them.
At the same time, Steve was growing disillusioned with the shifty world of drug dealing.
You have relationships and everything crashes. Everybody you walk with and fight for, when you find out really who they are, they're not who they said they was. I decided that my only friend in life was my shadow. And so I never called anybody my friend because I knew my shadow wouldn't tell on me. I knew my shadow wouldn't be there with me through anything. So therefore I found out early in life there was no friends.
It was in this bleak frame of mind that Steve first set eyes on the woman who would become his sidekick in crime. But Leslie Couch was no walk in the park.
She jerked a girl through a blazer window and into the highway. We had a monster fight one night.
She wouldn't hesitate to fight, you know, she would jump right on somebody.
She had more guts than I guess anybody I ever ran with.
Fighting with me was part of the way I was raised. I remember the bigger kids jumping on my little brother. He was 5 years younger than me. And I was told to either go out there, whoop them, or I would get whooped when I come back in.
Not even the law wanted us together. The law knew that if we were together, there's trouble.
Like Steve, Leslie found her childhood interrupted by alcohol-fueled violence.
I can remember my dad going down the road and me in the passenger seat, making me lay down to shoot through the car at the guy that shot his brother. But it
being that there was a draw a break. I want to tell you nothing on the inside. I'd die with you, but I won't tell you my heart. But inside of me, I was dying. Rain, oh rain, are you here to stay? Oh, why won't you blow away? 'Cause I ain't seen one sunny day on the river of pain. I've been going downhill and I can't come back. So far gone as a matter of fact, like a runaway train on a one-way track to the river of pain. River of pain, cold and mean, run like a devil to the deep blue sea. Black as the night, cursed by the rain, Lord, I'm drowning in the river of pain. And then they got
In early 2000, while most of the world was celebrating the dawn of a new millennium, Clay County was on the verge of losing an entire generation to drugs.
Every neighbor I had saw drugs, abused drugs.
I was drinking and smoking marijuana every day, and eventually got to where I was doing the pain pills every day.
You wake up in the morning, think about using, you go to bed thinking about using, you do anything for that drug.
It had that hold on me. I would do anything to get it.
Across Eastern
You see shadow people.
I can't remember when my 17th, 18th, 19th birthday was. I'm not a clue.
I see faces come before me on a daily basis that are the effects of drug abuse. I mean, I see that. I mean, beautiful girls, and handsome kids and boys that I knew that had been destroyed.
After 99, 2000, 2001, you started seeing the daughters of the school superintendents and the sons of the mayors, and I mean, it was the good kids who started to have drug problems, and that really was a wake-up call for a lot of people. That it sort of moved from what was seen as a trailer park problem onto Main Street.
The Bible says, we're to be one, that Jesus prayed that prayer. But we would have never been one here just because the Bible said it. It took something like drugs and everybody. You could walk in at that time into any church in Clay County. You say, how many of you have somebody in the immediate family that's on drugs, and 95% of people are raising their hands.
This is my job.
And that drug, that sin, brought us together.
Then, on the verge of oblivion, a spark of anger. The community might go down, but they would go down fighting.
We covenanted together that we were going to fight together, shoulder to shoulder, side by side.
People got tired of burying the kids. I think it just finally got to a boiling point where people just absolutely said, it's enough.
There is a darkness in these hills. I am not afraid. There is a darkness in these hills. Though some may tremble, I am still. But I say, oh,
Clay County's long slumbering churches began to awaken and find their voice.
Sometimes we'd have 100, 150 people come on Saturday morning to pray. And just from all different walks of life, every church background, would just come. We even had people that weren't Christians come to the prayer meeting sometimes, just because they were looking for some kind of help.
As sectarian walls crumbled, there were some pleasant discoveries.
We don't have a problem praying out loud, our church, but people that never did that before, man, are just on their knees and crying out to God. All of a sudden, you're hugging a Presbyterian, for God's sake, or a Methodist or somebody.
My best friend is Doug Adner. Doug is pastor of Community Church, probably a charismatic, non-denominational type church.
And Ken and I, Ken Bowman, we just decided that not only is Ken a Southern Baptist, he's a Calvinist. And I don't know what I am, but I'm not one of them. And so we decided that we were going to focus on Jesus and our problems. I preach at his church, he does mine. As a matter of fact, I think my folks like him better than, I trust him, and that's what's happened. All of a sudden, the pastors started working together. We realized we liked each other.
The affection was real and remarkable.
We genuinely love each other. And Doug makes me smile.
He's like if I could say that, he's like the Dean Martin, and I'd be like the Jerry Lewis. Not that you're a drinker. But seriously, Ken's the smart one of the two of us, and usually I go first, and Ken kind of mops up the mess, and that has to come to that.
Brother Ken and Deb are so opposite. They're nothing alike. But it just amazes me how God put them together and how He uses them.
We would have never been able to do what we're doing together if we hadn't trusted each other.
Meanwhile, behind all of this newfound unity, Above all this desperate prayer, God was at work. His target and his instrument was the region's long-serving congressman, Hal Rogers.
He started getting phone calls from parents talking about their kids being hooked on Oxycontin and other pharmaceuticals, and he took notice.
His answer was to form a new kind of drug-fighting organization. It was called Operation Unite. Paul Hayes has been in law enforcement for over 30 years, including a stint as commander of the Kentucky State Police Special Response Team.
I have seen people come in and out of prison systems. We've tried treatment, we've tried punishment, we've tried separation, we've tried everything. But really, it's always been a revolving door. I began to pray to God because I knew God was the answer to these problems. And about that time was when Operation Unite came about.
Engel, a petite fireball from Coal-Rich Pike County, was chosen to direct the new venture. Smart and highly qualified, she was still a tough sell to the weary citizens of Manchester, Kentucky.
And prayed with confidence that God would send people to them to help them, and they really thought he was playing a good joke on them when I walked in the room.
She was supposed to solve the drug problem, and she was a pretty lady, weighed about 115 pounds.
Yeah, what, I said, a girl over here to fight these drug
dealers for lunch, you know.
But Karen would not be underestimated for long.
In April, we coordinated a law enforcement effort with state, federal, and local law enforcement agencies, and we arrested 212 drug dealers in less than 8 weeks of investigations.
Meanwhile, the battle was heating up on the spiritual front.
We all started gathering and praying and asking God to deliver our county.
We wanted God to come into our community and change our community, change our culture.
One day, a little Methodist guy that's not here anymore, that looked like Mr. Rogers. You know what Mr. Rogers looked like? I mean, all he needed was a little sweater and a sock. Just a neat, good man got up and he said, we need to pray this morning for God to expose the darkness.
We were desperate for God to do something.
It's in their darkest moments that really those prayers were answered.
When the strategy was finally revealed, it came in an unusual package. Ken Bowman, the conservative pastor of the prestigious Manchester Baptist Church, had a dream.
Listen, we need to have a solemn march through the streets of our town and said, ask God to take back our city, take back our community.
I think because it was him and his dream, that made it special. If it had been us that had dreams and believed them all the time, wouldn't have been near as special.
Everything converged all at the right time. And see, God only could do that.
Kirk, vision must be put into action. And there was little precedent for this among Christians in Clay County.
It's going to depend on the folks in the community. They've got to stand up.
The second time we met, we watched the transformation video, and that gave us hope.
Hope's a great thing, because without hope you have cynicism and apathy.
They began to pray for a solution, and they started taking action.
We had a great group of Christians in our community that came forward and said, this is enough. We have got to take our community back. I get chills talking about this,
Ken and Doug said, we're working together on this thing. We want to do something right here in Clay County, and we're going to have a march. And we thought, okay, Clay County's going to have a march. We'll be there. In our mind, 25, 30 people.
Back what the devil had stolen, but we were taking back what was rightfully ours that we had given up because the church hadn't done what it was supposed to have done.
Despite these good intentions, low early turnout had organizers wondering if they would be carrying the banner alone.
Doug was there, and a couple little groups of people there, maybe 25 or 30, and I'm thinking, this is not looking good. 2 o'clock came, 2:15, 2:20. I saw there was some movement over the hill.
when they would get it called. People's farm was just old people.
Churches in their vans, people in buses, just whatever they could get their hands on, they got on it and they came.
It was not the prettiest day we ever seen. And I'll tell you what it was. It was blowers and blowers' eyes.
A lot of people all bunched together, this almost a mile long. God is really doing something here. He's really doing something.
The word of God for all to see, like footprints in the sand. Listening now, and you will hear the misery of your plight. When dawn becomes the morning, the darkness put to flight. Brothers, can't you see? And some walk with him, the man from Galilee.
In His name, for a purpose. And that purpose is that Jesus truly would be Lord over our county.
State troopers. You have to get people in the community that are God-fearing. You have to pour your heart. And that's what a lot of good people here did.
In the end, an estimated 4,000 marchers from across the denominational spectrum would take their stand, not in defiance, but in humble repentance.
For 63 preachers to get on their knees in the rain was just a remarkable thing.
I think that was one of the important, necessary steps to the revival that took place here.
For a stunned Karen Ingram, the experience was both eye-opening and life-changing.
She said as she was marching, she realized the church is the key to everything.
We didn't understand that. At that moment, it changed my life.
John Becker says God tabernacled here. And I don't know any other way to say that. He really did.
Dawning in Clay County.
When 3,000 or 4,000 people stand up and say, we're tired of this stuff, then that gets attention.
There's probably never been, if you've understood the story behind this, there's never been a greater headline than this one, enough. And sure, after 200 years, it was enough.
Unbeknownst to the pastors, the FBI was already in town. The net was tightening around official corruption, and the initial catch would include some pretty big fish.
Our mayor was arrested, our assistant police chief, our county court clerk, city councilman, fiscal court members, the fire chief, the city manager, the 911 director.
When you say the veil was kind of lifted and things started happening, I think that was the time.
When the surge of momentum that is just taking place, people know that things are changing.
There's just a state of mind of people now that wasn't here before.
In early 2007, Manchester city officials were looking to acknowledge their own unfolding deliverance.
One of the first things that happened was that our mayor changed the name of Manchester to City of Hope.
And so that is our new name. We hear comments from people all over, come by the parkway.
And they'll say, when we came over where it says City of Hope, and we came over that little hill, we felt the presence of the Lord.
I noticed as I drove down the expressway today, the parkway, the sign for Manchester was City of Hope. And I guess I've seen it a dozen times, but today I really noticed it.
1,000 people since we started. We have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of search warrants.
Back in August, the Manchester Police Department, along with Clay County Sheriff's Department, was able to successfully conduct the largest drug roundups in our department's history.
God has built a hedge of protection around us. He has allowed us to accomplish things that nobody believes is possible. He's in everything we do.
To calm their rebellious enemy, jail officials asked a visiting chaplain to call on Stephen.
He didn't want me there, you know. He would go to the bathroom and go, Lord.
You can't hide him there. They know where to hide. If you went out on the commode, he would find you. Here for live or die. And when I get out, I do, and if I don't, I don't.
After Steve's release from the Laurel County Detention Center, his spiritual progress was the talk of the town.
People in the community, they gave me 6 months. They got bets on me. And after 6 months, they gave me extension. I said, how small do you think I am?
When you think there is no value in a person, or no worth in a person, then you need to step back and look at Steve Collins.
To see Steve's life today is just amazing. To watch him pray with other guys that's in this place.
He's probably been responsible for leading more people to Christ than any preacher in this county.
We've baptized prisoners to rumble out sometimes.
So how past failings in this regard, Manchester's churches have really stepped into the breach.
When I got out of rehab, I could tell the community was different.
Every Sunday there are addicts in our church on Sunday morning. I mean, every Sunday.
They're also showing up at Doug Abner's community church.
These kind of people are welcome here. Drug addicts are welcome here.
Pastor Donald Sims at the aptly named City of Hope Church offers a hearty amen.
We want to be a model what hope is all about. God has given us a lot of people that nobody wants. And we take them, you know, we love them, and God's transforming them into the kind of people that everybody wants.
Many people in southeastern Kentucky are convinced that the restorative grace of God has also been visited upon the land itself.
It's beautiful. And in the spring, there's just redbud and dogwoods everywhere. And you hear the birds sing, and you hear the frogs croak at night, and you can hear the water going down the streams. It's just fantastic.
It is so obvious, you know, that the Lord He looks down upon us, and He rules. He controls everything.